Morning. Really exciting week for us. Tremendous opponent in the University of Houston coming to town. 12 noon kickoff. Our student section of 10,000 has been sold out for a couple days. That's really exciting to me. I can remember not too long ago being in that stadium in the Arkansas game and seeing the effect that our crowd can have on the game. And with an up-tempo offense, the way Houston runs it, a really hostile crowd can have an effect on the game. And I know our fans and our students are going to be ready at 12 noon on Saturday to do that. Really impressive team coming to New Jersey. Tony Levine has done a tremendous job there in his second season after taking over the program. You can tell that they have a special teams coordinator who is the head football coach. They are extremely well coached on special teams, number one in the country in block kicks. They're also number one in the country in turnover margin. So they've got a very talented group of players, and they do a good job coaching them down there. Questions?
Kyle, can you talk about, from an opposing coach's view, what do you credit the fact that they lost their starting quarterback, David Peland, and they've still been able to, go have a 5-game winning streak to start the season? The true freshman has stepped in, because we've seen throughout all levels of football, losing your starting quarterback could ruin your season.
Yeah, it's a tough position to just put a guy in, and to have a true freshman playing the way he's playing, a kid from St. Thomas Aquinas High School, which is one of the better programs nationally for a long time. They offered him at a very early stage before he even was the starter. I remember talking to Tony about that. And they obviously saw something in him that they really liked and thought would work in their system. So I think that you have to credit them in two ways. One, being able to identify and have talented players on your roster to put in there, but also ingraining a mentality in your team that it is a team sport, and it's going to be 11 players collectively at a time, 105 or more, collectively over the course of a season or a game that ultimately is going to win you football games.
I think the perception of them is more of a passing team, but can you talk about, they really have some balance between running and passing, they're almost dead even. In that regard, is that what makes them perceptually so much different than, say, a Fresno or another perceived passing team?
I think they are very dangerous in the running game, and I think you're right. If your game plan is solely designed around stopping them from throwing the ball, you're going to give up a lot of yards rushing them. They're averaging over 160 yards a game running the football. They've got two players that both average over 4.5 yards a carry that they hand the ball to quite a bit, in Ryan Jackson and Kenny Farrell. So they've got talented players. They spread you from one end of the field to the other in terms of the width of the field. They're going to threaten you down the field at times vertically. So they're going to make you defend the whole field. But at the same time, if you don't start your game plan with stopping the run, they will take advantage of it. And we've always felt that way around here. Great defense begins with stopping the run.
Kyle, could you elaborate on the special teams a little more? Do they go about blocking kicks the same way you guys do when you see it on film? And their return man, I think, is top 10 in the country. How important is containing him to field position?
They have 3 block kicks on the season. All of them are field goals. So do they do it exactly how we do it? And it's not quite exactly how we do it, but I think what you'll find in the teams that block kicks, the mentality is the same. It's not that the scheme is necessarily the same, because we adapt our scheme to what we see just like they do. But you need to have every player on the field that his assignment is to block the kick going as if they're going to block it every time. Because if you go after it with the attitude and the effort that you're going to block the kick every time, if you get one a game, you'll lead the country. I mean, they have 3 and they lead the country. So we're at 2 right now, and I think it's more the mentality that is the same. They're a block team, and it shows up on film with the way their players go after it. And you talk about Damian Payne as their punt returner, DeMarcus Ayers as their kick returner. Their kick returners averaging over 28 yards a kickoff return. So they're very well coached on special teams. The head coach there, Tony Levine, has been an excellent special teams coordinator for a long time.
Kyle, with Louisville losing the UCF, do you talk to your team at all about having everything in front and controlling own destiny and all that stuff, or is it too early?
I think Sundays are always a good time to show them the lay of the land in the conference. I think everybody sets out at the beginning of the year, and you're going to play 12 one-game seasons, and everybody's trying to be 1-0 every week. So if it all works out and you're 12-0, that's great. But if you stick around football, if you study football enough, you know that at the end of the season, there just aren't that many teams left standing that have a 0 in the loss column. It's just too competitive. There's just not that much of a difference between the teams week to week. And it's the little things in each football game that ultimately are going to win the football game. We have our recipe here: run the ball, stop the run, secure the ball, take it away. And we're playing the number 1 team in the country in turnover margin this week. So that's going to be critical. And then special teams. We feel like special teams can win the game for us. It has won games for us in the past. And we're playing one of the premier special teams in the country this week. So we've got some tremendous challenges. But that game did not surprise me, because I know Louisville's got an excellent team, and I know Central Florida's got an excellent team. And I think as we go through the season, you saw it in a number of games over the weekend, there's just not that much of a difference anymore in college football. You had better be ready to play, and you had better play for 60 minutes every week if you want to be 1-0.
Coach, with the place kicking, is Kyle Federico still the guy going forward, or is it going to be an open competition? How are you going to handle that?
Kyle Federico will be the kicker to start the game.
I mean, is there smaller room for error with him? And would you put Marsh in there if something falters?
I don't know that. I think right now Kyle's our kicker, and I've got confidence in him. And, that's the way we'll go into the game. I don't think there's any I don't feel any differently about Kyle than I do maybe some of the other positions on the team.
Kyle, looking at the depth chart with the way you have the offensive line, no major changes during the bye week. What did you see from that unit as a whole over the last week and a half?
I saw a unit that worked with the urgency of a group that knows they need to improve. And that was very pleasing to me. And I felt the same way about other positions on offense. I thought we had a very productive bye week. I thought we had a very productive practice last night to start the Houston week. And I feel good about the direction we're moving in.
Kyle, you said on Thursday that Paul would miss this week and could return in 2 weeks. How after this reevaluation of him, how much of a clearer understanding do you have of kind of where he is as opposed to where he started this whole thing?
I have the exact understanding that I said last Thursday. That's the understanding. I'm not trying to avoid the question, but that's my understanding. He's not ready now. He might be ready a week from now. Very confident he'll be ready beyond that.
Kyle, I know you don't like to predict how games might go, but they played some wild games. You've been in some passing games. These are statistically 2 of the worst pass defenses in the country. Would you expect it to take on that kind of characteristic, where you see teams throwing the ball a lot, maybe an SMU type game, a Fresno type game, and they just came off that type of game against BYU?
They did, and I caught a little bit of it on TV on Saturday. I thought we made some tremendous progress in that SMU game. We just didn't do it for 4 quarters. I thought for 3 quarters we did a really nice job. But as I just said a second ago, you have to do it for 4 quarters, sometimes even longer, as we've shown this year in overtime. But I look at their scores, and they've won a game versus Temple 22-13. They won a game versus Memphis 25-15. And then they just played a 46-47 game against BYU. So even with them, as potent as their offense is, they've been in some different kind of games this season, and I think that's why it's just hard to predict. I feel good about our improvement in our pass defense, and as I've said to the defense, now we got to do it for the duration of the game.
Kyle, what have you seen from Chaffee that's made him a definitive starter?
Definitive starter is not an expression I've ever used, but here's what I've seen in Anthony that, in my opinion, allows him to deserve to start the game. He is a very attention to detail-oriented person. He takes coaching very well, and he plays very hard. He plays with tremendous effort. And I think all 3 of those things combined have allowed him to improve to the point where now he's the starter, and you see him be productive in games.
Kyle, with this pass defense, just your thoughts on starting 2 true freshman corners against a team with weapons like Deontay Greenberry?
It's a great challenge for them. and it's a great challenge for us as a football team. But at this point in the season, after 6 games, I don't know that they're true freshmen anymore. You know, they've played. They've played on a national stage. They've played against really potent, high-octane offenses like SMU and Louisville. So I don't have the same feeling that I would have had at the Fresno game. You know, because to me, we've played a half a season now, so I think they have a certain degree of experience to them.
Without going into detail, does anything change from a defensive standpoint when you're playing against a true freshman quarterback? Since actually, I know you won't look ahead, but you might have that 2 weeks in a row.
I don't think it.
A little more,
I
or-
don't know that it changes in terms of your game planning, because you have to game plan their scheme and their personnel and their playmakers, and he's certainly one of them. But I think as games go on and you see how a player who is a younger player handles a hostile environment, you know, things could change within the game. That's for sure.
Kyle, how has Stevenson come along at cornerback? I think he was moved there last week from safety. I know he played there a little in the spring, but how has he come along at cornerback? And if they go 4 or 5 wide, how comfortable are you with him on the field right now in coverage?
Yeah, I thought DeLon had a good week of practice. I thought he made the transition nicely from safety to corner, and I think you're going to see him. And I think you're going to see him early in the game on some of the sub packages, and you may see him in a rotation of sorts at some point. We'll decide that later in the practice week, but he'll be in the game and he'll be playing.
Any other questions?
Thanks, guys.